This video is going to be a film study look at 4 or 5 of the most important plays in the Ravens' 28-14 win over the Steelers on Saturday night, pushing them into the divisional round. As I record this, the Bills are up 10-7 at the half, and so we don't know who will play. I'll try to premiere this at the end of that game. I'm going to focus here not on the totality of our offensive strategy. Clearly, Todd Monken and the offensive staff had a great game plan. They wanted to bully the Steelers, whether it was I formation stuff, 23 personnel, or even jumbo 23, where Jones comes on the field as the sixth offensive lineman or third tight end, if you will, along with Ricard and Derrick Henry, essentially 0 wide receivers on the field. How do you defend that? And I'm not even really necessarily going to focus on the option game, although at the end I'll make an analogy here for the option concepts that I think you'll be able to understand. I'm going to focus here on Lamar as a playmaker, which he's done all season. His career in the NFL, college, and high school before that. He didn't have to take center stage last night, and that, I think, is what makes this offense look so dangerous right now, is that Derrick Henry took control last night. Derrick Henry had 26 carries, I think 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Steelers really didn't have any answer for the option stuff nor typical run concepts. And finally, I will break down the 45-yard touchdown run by Henry where the Steelers are trying to force a keep read to Lamar, and in fact they do. Highsmith steps down, but the Ravens are well coached, and they're able to adjust, I think, not just from game to game on offense, but from series to series or play to play. That adjustment allows Henry to just bust loose and make it a 28-7 game. Essentially, it was over at that point, even though the Steelers were able to get another touchdown. We're going to go through some of the more important plays, in my opinion. This is the first touchdown to Bateman, and I'll give you the end zone angle first as an establishing shot. Hill and Andrews consistently were asked to chip release on Highsmith and Watt to help out Rosengarten and Stanley. Yes, did Rosengarten do a nice job against Watt at times? Sure, no problem. He got a lot of help at times as well. It was just smart coaching, in my opinion. And you can see what happens here is they're passing routes across. So as Aguilar's route is passed across, Lamar is just waiting for that to clear because he understands he's got the late developing dig to Bateman, who beats Dante Jackson. I didn't think Jackson played very well at all. What I saw last night from Dante Jackson from a coverage standpoint lined up with what I thought I saw prior to Week 11. Of course, we were unable to get the win in Week 11. Let's go to the All-22 angle, and you can see what I'm talking about. Again, you've already understood that Hill is going to help Stanley chip Highsmith. Andrews is going to help Rosengarten chip Watt. That's going to create more time and space for us. And I credit the Ravens coaching staff for the guys they used to do that. Hill and Andrews, 2 unselfish players, career Ravens that have been around. They're sold out to make sure that whatever they're asked to do is what happens. So watch them pass these routes across. Now Porter goes with Tylan Wallace across the field. And I think it's this safety here kind of starts to go with Aguilar as well and then passes that across. And so what that does is it ends up creating just this natural gap for the late developing dig. It's a great concept. And so 20, which I think is Cam Sutton, when he passes it across, he just stops. But he stops a little bit too late. You can see he crosses the hash. I think, look, I've never really necessarily taught this concept, to be honest with you, but, never majored in it. Occasionally we used it. We told our guys that, don't cross the middle of the field. He ends up, the NFL hashes are tighter, so it's easier for him to cross versus high school hashes that were, that wide, or college. We would say, don't leave the hashes. Stay in the middle of the field. So he ends up leaving this hash. You guys saw it from the end zone angle, and the ball's already in the air from Lamar. You can see Bateman has beat Dante Jackson. Late developing dig route, back of the end zone, 15-yard touchdown, makes it 7-0. That was a cool moment that made a statement there. We were able to run the ball on them, obviously, in the first half, but for Lamar to instantly switch from facilitator to playmaker, in this case, reading the route progression and the coverage, and then getting it to Bateman late, I think just illustrates how dangerous this offense is as it stands right now, 18 games in. All right, moving forward, this is the 4th possession, late second quarter, and again, it's going to be Bateman on the big play. This is a 3rd and 2. We're up 14-0. Steelers are trying to get the football back. They had actually just called a timeout. And it's a slant-flat concept. Bateman beats Porter to the inside. Lamar, nice delivery. Porter tries to challenge it. It's very well contested, if you ask me. Definitely play man here, here. Whatever the heck is going on here, I'll talk about here in a moment. This safety is clearly key in Lamar. For them to not recognize this route, and what I mean by that is Isaiah Likely's route. It's just illustrative of how the Steelers' defense was not in sync. So you got Wilson, Deshaun Elliott, Fitzpatrick, and the backside safety all letting Likely run up the middle of the field. Now, it's a four-man rush scheme, but Watt's kind of dropping out, you can see there. Pittsburgh's very fortunate that Lamar, on a three-man rush, essentially, with Watt dropping out, isn't able to hold on to this football for a moment because Likely's gone. That's a touchdown, and it's over. But I like the way it worked out with Lamar getting the touchdown on the last play or second to last play of the second quarter, which we'll show you here in a moment. Slant-flat, something that we've used a ton. And in this case, Bateman's been reliable. Look, OBJ was reliable on that one last year as well. For the Steelers not to be able to cover that route, match that up. If you think I'm being harsh, just keep watching the video because it's a consistent theme. Same possession, late second quarter. I think we're 43 seconds left in the half, I should say, as the ball is snapped. Another huge coverage mistake by the Steelers. That was a big play on the previous one that just kept possession and prevented Pittsburgh from getting the ball. Again, notice Andrews and Justice Hill are going to chip to the right and to the left. Had to be annoying for Watt and Highsmith to have to deal with those guys initially. I think Rosengarten kind of loses here off the edge, and Lamar's got to get rid of this football. Instead, he steps up, and Wilson and I think it's Sutton are just not on the same page. Jackson, excuse me, it's not Sutton. Everybody else appears to be in man here. This ends up being a huge gain for Mark Andrews. I think 21 yards. Everyone across the board is matched up. All of this looks like man. You've got a free safety, Fitzpatrick, who's back here off screen. Sorry, you guys can't see him because of the way I set the frame up. And then these two guys just don't match this in the same manner, or they're not coordinated. If you want to pass it across, fine. Then Peyton Wilson stays here. He takes over Mark Andrews. Jackson stays here. He takes over the drag. It essentially is almost like a mesh with the two guys that chipped, and the Steelers are not able to handle it. Huge moment there. Like I said, 43 seconds left in the half. We were close to field goal range already. The ball, as we snapped it, I think is on the 44. And Andrews gets, I believe it's 21 yards. But that really opened it up and secured, okay, we're in field goal range now. We're definitely in a situation where we can get up 17-0, and we get the ball to start the third quarter. Of course, Pittsburgh's defense got a boost from Cam Hayward walking back on the field. TJ Watt played with a little bit more force there on that first possession, and they got to stop. But it wasn't 17-0 anyway. It becomes 21-0, which I'll show you here in a moment. This one is just as impressive, if you ask me, and also just a little bit of dereliction of duty by Pittsburgh's defense. Second quarter, it's a 1st and 10, so it's a very next snap. Again, watch Andrews and Justice Hill. Chip, help out the tackles, slow down the pass rush. Four-man rush by the Steelers. Keep that in mind here in a moment. One, and there's two Pittsburgh helmets there. Four-man rush. Keep that in mind here in a moment when we get the touchdown pass to Justice Hill, okay? A lot of things are reactive in terms of play calls. What you decide to call on this play may be a reaction to the previous snap or something that happened 2 or 3 plays ago. Likely not only beats Cam Sutton across the field here, stiff arms him into oblivion. I was not lying or exaggerating in the reaction video last night. I thought that as this happened, I was like, man, he could get called over to the sideline into the concussion protocol for a stiff arm, which I've never seen happen. Normally it's a collision. In this case, Likely just punishes him into the ground. I thought Sutton and Dante Jackson really had trouble last night matching up with pretty much whoever they had to guard. Now check out compare their lack of awareness, or in this case, their lack of sticky coverage, to Likely's super high level awareness. He hustles to the left hash. So the left hash is right here. And yeah, we're not going to see it. That's why I have it paused right here. Not only does he try to hand the ball to the ref almost steps away like he's going to let Likely spot the ball, which I've never seen before. I've seen players try to spot it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we've coached that before. Everybody who's coached football has coached, hey, you run over and you hand it to the ref in a late game, late half situation, especially if we have no timeouts left and we're trying to clock it. So great coaching, great preparedness by the Ravens coaching staff and Isaiah Likely. but I've never seen a ref kind of back off and almost look like he was going to let the player spot the ball, which of course you can't do. It's the referee's job to spot it, depending on what the side judges have in their judgment. So same play, end zone angle, and you'll see the chips by Hill and Andrews. Also, great job by Macari. There's an attempted pick stunt here with Herbig and the D tackle 57. And I got a little bit to say about 57 later on here in the video on a particular play that Henry busts for the 45-yard touchdown run. But watch Macari peel back to help out with Herbig. So because of the chip on Highsmith, Stanley, even though he's giving ground a little bit, doesn't need as much help. And then Macari is able to peel back on Herbig, give Lamar that throwing lane. I didn't think that Queen was very active on this particular play. Certainly Isaiah likely was. We're going to watch that one 2 or 3 times. Maybe 4. Huge moment. And again, to see Likely run across the field and try to give the ball to the ref. Great preparedness. Puts us in a situation where we can spike it real quick. I think the Steelers actually called a timeout after we spiked it. We were out of timeout. So when this ball was snapped, it's 11 seconds left. Keep in mind, you had a four-man rush on the previous 2 pass plays. So now with 11 seconds left in the half, the Steelers know the situation. We're out of timeouts. A sack by us or a receiver who gets tackled short of the end zone, the half is over. We're not going to be able to get up there and spike the ball again. So what do? They start to bring 5. Now, 50, Roberts is a really good inside linebacker against the run. That's well documented. He had 14 tackles last night. This is a 5-man rush, even though he peels off. So I think that all the Steelers are trying to do is find or create a one-on-one for one of these guys by walking up the inside linebacker, Roberts, and bringing him on the rush. He doesn't get anything done against Falele. Highsmith doesn't really get anything done against Stanley other than inside spin move. We're helping out on Watt. Watt didn't look as explosive to me last night. Rosengarten, very balanced. Obviously, he did a really nice job throughout the game. What Lamar does here is magical, trickery, sorcery, whatever you want to call it. It's a different mode. We're not asking him to just snap it and read the option. We're not asking him to be under center, snap it, and then go hand it off to Henry and run out a play fake. Additional to that, it's pretty obvious that Patrick Queen left his man. Queen is fronting up Justice Hill. Now he's got his eyes on Lamar, and you can see Justice Hill wide open. Look, if it's a 4-man rush, and this is why I brought it up a couple of plays ago, then you can do that. If it's a 4-man rush, man-free, like I showed a moment ago on the completion to Likely against Sutton, then you can do that as Patrick Queen. You can go on ahead and attack the quarterback, and you may actually need to. If it's a 5-man rush and you're responsible for the running back, you can't. Loss of defensive integrity, if you ask me. This is the 3rd one just in this video that I've mentioned to you. I've got at least 3 or 4 others that I've seen on film so far. To get to the half up 21-0, 308 yards of offense, 7.8 yards per play. Amazing. From what I'm seeing from the Steelers defense, I have to tell you, the fact that we didn't score 35 or 38 is a little surprising. They did play better in the 3rd quarter, don't get me wrong. But their ability to stay with their responsibility and adjust during the play, it was extremely poor. And I just don't think it can be said enough. And as illustration, let me show you the same play that we just talked about, the touchdown to Justice Hill, but from the all-22 angle. Bateman's going to motion across left to right. Keep him in mind. So here's Queen on Justice Hill. We know he's going to lose him. Watch what happens in this little spot shadowed circle here. You've got Jackson and I think Deshaun Elliott, both trying to match up with Tylan Wallace, and Bateman running absolutely free. If there weren't pressure on Lamar and he's actually able to keep his eyes on the read, this is another touchdown that doesn't have to look as spectacular. This little flip to Justice Hill. My point is those guys were not matching up well against the pass, and they got absolutely wrecked by the run game. I don't mean to necessarily disrespect the Steelers because I look at them as almost a mirror image of us at times. The 2 huge differences is they don't have Derrick Henry and they don't have Lamar Jackson. But for the quality of defense that they have played over the course of the years, and I'm talking about going back to like even Dick LeBeau when he was the coordinator. What I saw last night from them from a coverage standpoint and a run defense perspective on the same playoff game, it's borderline shocking, if you ask me. All right, we're going to move forward here to the third quarter. This is after they've gotten their first touchdown. Russell Wilson converts 3 third down passes, I believe, against man coverage. And we're in a somewhat perilous situation. 2nd and 20 after a sack. We are up 21-7. You know how this possession ends. It'll end with Henry on the option give. This is Tylan Wallace on what I would call semi-roll. People got different names for it nowadays. Dash, whatever you want to say. Essentially, we're pinning to the outside on the edge defender, Watt. It's Ricard pinning here. And then Henry's reading this. He's either going to insert underneath out into the flats, or he could loop to the outside out into the flats. I've also seen some iterations where we lose that edge defender and he ends up helping out on the edge defender as well. So multiple options there on the play. Additional to that, it's cover 3. And the Steelers are basically going to sling or roll their cover 3 to this side, post-snap, meaning all of the routes are over here. Well, let me show you. It's 4 to a side. You've got Henry, Wallace, Likely, and I think that's Bateman right here. Let me get rid of the rectangle. So we got 4 to a side against cover 3. Very difficult to cover. I think as Lamar is running here, he knows where he's going with this ball. I believe he knows he's going to Wallace, sitting down right on the hash. I almost called him Seneca Wallace. It's an old name. Played for Penn State, I think. Watch Lamar keep his eyes back towards Bateman. I don't think he's looking to throw the ball to Bateman. I think he's just trying to preserve that throwing lane such that Deshaun Elliott won't get into that lane, meaning he's not staring at Tylan Wallace. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick and those guys trying to strip the ball. I guess there's really not much they can do here. Wallace ends up with a 21-yard gain. That's another huge play for them to have backed us up into a 2nd and 20 after a sack, which is their game. They're built, if you ask me, to stop the run, slow it down, and then get after the quarterback. For us to be able to convert that after converting the 3rd and 2 to Bateman from a similar portion on the field late in the second quarter, those are huge moments where Lamar needed to shift modes, and it happened instantaneously. The Steelers just don't have any, well, who does have anyone who can do that consistently? We do, thankfully. Very next snap, again into the third quarter, is the jet sweep to Sims. And we're using the gravity of Henry here. Notice the outside linebacker that's spot shadowed. It's Highsmith. He's going downhill. He's going with the give to Henry. And as a result, it creates a 3-on-2 for Sims. The Steelers are fortunate this didn't go for more. I think it ends up being a 15-yard gain. Porter makes the tackle, coming all the way across the field with Sims. It's a great concept against man. When we saw jet sweep teams, it was one of the reasons why we avoided man against particular formations, because you play man, who the hell tackles a guy? Nobody. You got Andrews on Fitzpatrick, Wallace out on Dante Jackson, and Porter is in trail. You can see from this angle, they're very fortunate that Sims wasn't able to skirt this more towards the sideline with Fitzpatrick's back turned. I think Sims is respecting Fitzpatrick's presence there. But if he's able to almost press closer to Fitzpatrick, there, I think, exists an opportunity for him to just outrun Porter and then be one-on-one with 23. I think the Steelers, their entire team, is at a difficult moment, and their defense as well. It's surprising to hear that part. You know, they don't have Russell Wilson under contract, obviously. Justin Fields, they didn't pick up his option after trading for him. To say that the defense is in a difficult spot sounds, I know it sounds unrealistic, perhaps sounds like hyperbole, but when you watch the film and you see how many blown coverages they had and how many poor coverage choices they had in the first place from a scheme standpoint, you can't help but evaluate it in that way. Finally, the 45-yard touchdown run by Henry. There's a lot to say here. So first of all, the option game. Let's do it from a formation standpoint initially. This is trips closed A, one of my favorite formations out of 11 personnel. 3 receivers down here, tight end, running back up to the top side by themselves. So essentially you've got one receiver, the tight end, and the running back to the top side. They have enough players here to stop the option. They do. And their concept is to run the outside linebacker underneath C-gap, underneath the tight end, force a keep read by Lamar. That's what they're trying to do. Option teams are if you're an option team, you practice stuff like this. Am I saying that this is a mid-play adjustment by Lamar and Henry? It's possible. First of all, it is a great job by Mark Andrews. It's a fantastic job of him to take Highsmith down. What they're trying to do, if you're unfamiliar with it, is Highsmith step down to take away Henry, and then the inside linebacker to that side, scrape exchange, gap exchange, whatever you want to call it, to take quarterback, because we understand the path. Henry downhill, and then the quarterback secondary to that out to the edge. The safety / corner, those guys would normally be responsible for quarterback. Normally, when you refer to option phases, there's 3 parts to the phase. There's dive, quarterback, pitch. In this case, most time at the NFL and college level, there's only 2 phases to it, the dive and the quarterback. So for the corner, he would be on quarterback, outside shoulder in. For the safety, the way that we would coach it if we thought it was only a double option would be dive to pitch late. Now, the way that this works out, inside linebacker goes to the keep. Corner obviously would be on the keep, the quarterback. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think, is the guy who's folding over too far. You're a safety. And Henry makes a great cut. Linderbaum, excellent job as well, getting enough of a piece of Patrick Queen to prevent him from making the tackle. Now, I've seen this from an under center alignment. What I say this is, watch what happens to Highsmith just before the snap. See how he tightens down? That's a little bit of a giveaway. So at that point, depending on the way you're taught and depending on the scheme, what you would say, if you knew he was going to do this, let's operate from this manner. If you knew he was going to do this, you could say we got 2 options. Let's just take him down. So block him down, and then let's run it 1 gap wider. Now, from an under center standpoint, that's easier to get done, especially like split backs option. If it's under center and you can get the ball to him quick, then you just take it 1 gap wider. The option still exists in the same manner, but you just run it a little bit wider. In our number system, it went from being 41 and 49 to 42 and 48. But here, this is post-snap, Lamar accomplishing this. So we didn't know that Highsmith was going to do this. The other way to get it accomplished would be Andrews' arc release, leave 56 alone since he's the read man, and then you still run on your same path. But watch what Henry has to do because of 56 pinching down. Henry has to jump to the outside of him. Essentially, it goes 1 gap wider like I just described. Parts like the Red Sea, and he's gone. Well, why? First of all, like I said, Linderbaum did a great job on Queen getting to him. Also, what I think they're trying to get done here is because Highsmith is stepping down and essentially pinching to this inside gap, this C gap. As a result of that, normally our slants or stunts, depending on the words, you'll say Rip and Liz, would refer to just the defensive tackles. Ricky, Linda, something like that. So if you slant to the left with 57, you have to slant to the left with Hayward because you don't want to leave a 2-gap bubble. So for a moment, consider Hayward is in a 3. If this D tackle slants to Falele's outside shoulder, that puts him in B gap as well. What do you have? You have a 2-gap bubble. You have 2 A gaps in between those 2 defensive tackles, and that's what occurs. For that to happen at the same time that 50 flows over the top, which is what he's supposed to do, 50's not wrong here. It's not Lamar, guys. This is how they're defending the option. I'm talking about this player's reaction here. This isn't Lamar's gravity. This is just the option game and the way they're defending it. But the way they're defending it for Hayward to not be able to get to the inside gap, it's not sound. It's not a sound way to defend the option at all. You can't slant your OLB and slant 1D tackle and then leave a 2-gap bubble against a downhill run concept. That's the point. Where this would normally hit is in here. You can't leave a 2-gap bubble in that area. That's the way that I understand it. Maybe it's simplistic. Feel free to let me know if you recognize it or have another way to describe it. It's very poor defensive structure, and these reactions look like they don't understand the option game anywhere near to the level that our coaches do. Now, Todd Monken's not an option coach, By the way, neither was Greg Roman when he showed up to Baltimore. He was not an option guy, to my knowledge. He wasn't a career-long option guy. I'm not either. I do have a little bit of a knowledge and experience or exposure, to guys that are way smarter and way more intelligent and prepared and experienced about the option game. I would compare my own knowledge to theirs at 25 to 30%, meaning things that I have to study, watch 5, 6, 7, 8 times, maybe sometimes 30 instances of watching it, rewatching it, to understand something they would watch twice. There's people out there that are like that about the option, about spread pass concepts, about under center power play action. That's the nature of football. Coaches specialize in certain things. For Todd Monken to come in here and now to have these adjustments, these adaptations available to him, I think is amazing because he's not an option guy. What I mean by that is this. One way that it was explained to me, the option, years ago was compare it to Latin. Who speaks Latin? Who studies Latin? Nobody, right? Occasionally you run across a school that teaches it, and in fact, I do have a couple of students I help out in my tutoring endeavors with Latin, so I try to learn it, but I'm really of no help. Again, I'm at 25, 30% knowledge base compared to what they're trying to learn from their professor. It's a lost language, at least in terms of the United States, and the option game in a lot of ways in football, particularly at the NFL, is a lost language. We have guys, Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken, the offensive staff, who are conversant enough, fluent enough with the option language to adjust during the game. That very well could have been an adjustment whereby Andrews knew, okay, if he steps down, you're going to take him down. And that could have been recognition by Lamar as well for that situation. It's beautiful football. I'm a big fan of the option, whether it's under center, whether it's the shotgun. We're generally going to see shotgun iterations of it, at the NFL level, particularly with the Ravens. I wanted to get this video done for you guys today, Sunday, during the games. I have no idea who won the game. As I record this, like I said, the Bills and Broncos are in the third quarter. I really kind of don't care who we play. I care where we play. Clearly, we would prefer to be in Baltimore. But if we're going to execute like this on offense and force people to defend things that aren't even there, then you're going to have a heck of a time trying to match up with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and all of the weapons that we have. And then we will want to switch modes and put Lamar back into normal quarterbacking situations. He's going to execute at a high level as well. 16 of 21 passing. Really, I think 16 of 19. You have a spike and a throwaway. Laced the Pittsburgh Steelers defense for really the second game in a row, along with Derrick Henry, consistent impact against this Pittsburgh defense. You guys let me know what you think of the video in the comment section and what you think of the way that I compared the option game to Latin. It's something that I was exposed to years ago, and it really clarified for me how different that style of football can be for teams that have no experience, teams and coaches and players that have no experience against it, other than facing it once or twice a year. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at how Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and the offense were able to switch modes and answer all of the questions that the Pittsburgh Steelers tried to pose, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.